there were a lot of uncertainties. There were layoffs in different industries like tech. There were bankruptcies in several
Mm.
industries, including the ones that are very special to us. There's the rise of AI. There's a lot of geopolitical tensions. There's a lot, right?
This notion that, well, I'm doing the work already. If they feel I deserve it, they will give it to me. I think there's some perception around if I say I want to become a manager, it might seem like I'm thinking too much of myself, thinking too highly of myself, that other person got promoted and I didn't. And I felt awful. I felt terrible. I thought, what else do I need to do? I'm doing so much. I feel like there's nothing left that I can do more of, and why didn't I get that right? I felt like I deserved it.
Welcome to Level Up, Don't Burn Out, the podcast where we explore the balance between career success and well being. I'm Life Coach Kenn, and I coach managers level up without burning out. Hi, this is Life Coach Ken, and this is Level Up, Don't Burn Out. Welcome to another episode of Level Up, Don't Burn Out. So today's episode is all about something we've all felt. How do you level up when the future seems uncertain? And who better to help us unpack this than the incredible 𝗟𝗲𝗃𝗲 Cañiza? Hey, Jackie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Ken. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so to everyone listening, Jackie is a powerhouse in the world of leadership and life coaching. Yes, a powerhouse. She's an ICF professional certified coach or PCC. She's also a certified neurotransformational coach. And in fact, she's not yet done with all her learning. She's currently pursuing a master's in London, pursuing a master's in neuroscience. But before coaching, Jackie spent over 15 years in the corporate industry in HR. Now she has a decade of coaching under her belt. She's the vice president of the International Coaching Federation, or ICF, in the Philippines, and the founder of Haraya Coaching. But beyond her impressive resume, Jackie has had a personal impact on me. She was my manager for a few months. So that was only a few months, and that was over a decade ago at a consumer goods company. Those months were short, but the impact and the life lessons stuck with me for over a decade now. So you can see that she is an effective leader and one of the reasons why I pursued coaching. So with that, Jackie, welcome.
Aw, thank you so much, Ken. I
Right.
appreciate it.
Okay, so speaking of, let's start with with your journey since I had like an introduction about you and being in HR. So you were in HR for like over 15 years, if I'm not mistaken, before switching to life coaching, right? So this is like a two-part question.
Mhm.
First off, what sparked your initial love for HR? And what was that aha moment that made you dive into coaching?
Okay, so maybe going back in history, a little way back. Um, so I started my first role in HR in training and development.
Hmm.
So that was my first entry job into corporate. I actually had enjoyed training and development already in college when I started to get active in organizations. And so I was part of a team that was doing training for other students. So that kind of solidified that okay, this is a space that I want to be in. Uh, so even if I had spent a lot of time going around the different areas of HR from the time I started to work, I always had a soft spot for learning and development, right? So when I decided that it was time for me to venture out and do something on my own, I figured what better time to, go back to my roots and to go back to that space which I really love. So that's why learning and development kind of became the theme for when I started the company. I knew I wanted to include coaching because when I was in corporate and we were trying to hire coaches for our leaders, for our people, at the time, it was very hard to find coaches who were in the Philippines and qualified to coach at that level. So we resorted to hiring and engaging coaches from outside the Philippines, which I thought was a shame because, I mean, for sure, there was a lot of talent that we could have in the Philippines to do this kind of work. So that's when I also thought we need to make this more accessible because hiring people from outside was expensive, which meant only limiting the opportunity for senior leaders, high potentials, and and especially after I got my certification, I realized, wow, this is such a powerful thing. I mean, for sure now, right? Being a coach yourself, the 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 opportunity that we're able to give people um, in just kind of thinking through things on their own. And so we wanted to make, me and my partners, when I started the company, we wanted to make coaching much more accessible. So that was kind of the shift when I moved from corporate to running the business. So that's really the mission.
Right. So it started off with really your passion and love for learning, and it just like transitioned from learning and development training to now coaching. And I love what
Yeah.
you said about having more Filipino coaches now, and you being one of the pioneers of that, because one of the core competencies of a coach, right, is cultivating the trust and safety. And it just helps if
Yeah.
you understand the client within their context. So it's good if you understand their nuances and have that connection with the client.
Yeah. And I like to think also that as Filipinos, in our culture, there's so much about how we're raised and our values that is very natural for connecting with others, I think. I
Mm,
think that's part of what I've realized and discovered along the way too.
right. Connection. Right.
Mm.
Okay, Jackie, so you've explained how you were able to transition, but I'm just really curious because I know for a fact that it must have like had challenges. There were a lot of uncertainties transitioning from having that stable corporate income to
Mm.
running your own thing. So I just wanted to know, like, how did you navigate that uncertainty of like coming from HR to not just coaching, but like having an entrepreneur hat, because you had to start that on your own, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I have to say, the competence for being a coach
Mm-hmm.
and for running a business are quite different, very very different for sure. I was lucky enough to have before I left corporate to have shifted roles. And so the way we met was I was in a role that really was about business development,
Mm,
right? And um I was in HR for many years, but I had wanted to move into an operational role in the company. And I had the opportunity when one of our general managers took a chance on me. And I pitched to him the idea of me taking this role of business development because we were looking for someone to hire for some time, and we were struggling to find a good fit. And so I said to him, why don't you give me a shot at it? Because I have some transferable skills in project management. I have a good interest in the subject matter that we were working on. I've good experience in people management. So he agreed, thankfully. And from that, this experience in business development, which gave me a complete lens, right? We had to work on supply chain, marketing, sales, finance, technology, everything in our little team of four, right? And I think that's what gave me the initial confidence, right? That if I can do this for somebody else. We were kind of an intrapreneurial team, right? Then if I had something that was of my own, why wouldn't it work, right? Definitely it came with a lot of risks. I mean, a lot of unknowns. But I did the work. I prepared myself as best as I could. I took my certifications. I studied business as well, even if I had exposure to business in corporate. Um, and I took courses that would help me. And I think some of that was very helpful in getting to start up, and then of course sustaining it over the years really takes working on a lot of things simultaneously. Yeah, so that transition was not easy for sure, but very meaningful, I would say. Lots of fun. Lots of fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Not everybody enjoys it, but I do.
Yeah. Well, it does really take a lot of initiative and willpower.
Mm,
From what I'm hearing, you did a lot of groundwork and learning and growing before you transition. So it's not just like overnight, I decide I want to be this person, right? So you did a lot of, like you said, you did your certification, you had some background, you may had some experiences, and you also taken advantage of your transferable skills, like you said. Speaking of uncertainty, we've weathered a lot of storms lately. I'm sure you're familiar. I mean, after the
yeah.
pandemic, people started going back to work. There were a lot of uncertainties. There were layoffs in different industries like tech. There were bankruptcies in several
Mm,
industries, including the ones that are very special to us. There's the rise of AI. There's a lot of geopolitical tensions. There's a lot, right? And I
yeah.
don't want to cause fear here, but if we think we're done because we've like somehow gained stability post pandemic, I think we need to rethink that because I've actually
Mm,
read from the World Economic Forum that in the next 5 years, there will be 69 million new jobs. So that's good. But 83 million jobs will be lost. That's just the data person. So it says that there's a net contraction of 14 million jobs globally. So with this backdrop, there's a lot of chaos.
mm.
How do you think people can keep their sanity and stay well amidst all this chaos?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, right? I think what the pandemic did was, I think, to open our eyes and be more mindful of the value of our mental health. I think
Mm,
it it was already there and underlying in many ways, but I think it just put it at the fore, right? And so more focus is being given to it, more importance is being given to it. Many companies are investing in mental health. Um, and you'll really see that uh, I think even the World Health Organization is seeing mental health as one of the most
mm,
critical challenges of these times. So and then that with the backdrop of all of these different things happening in our environment, right? It does beg the question: how do we keep ourselves well? Um, so there are many ways that systems and organizations can help people be well, but I think from an individual standpoint, um, I'm a fan of education, right? So I'll start with, educating ourselves. What is it that we can actually do to help ourselves keep mentally fit? That's also one of the reasons why neuroscience is it's such a fascination for me, because it talks about mechanisms, right? How does our system and our brain work so that we can help ourselves keep well? Um, so, and being aware of our own mindsets, I think is one thing. Being aware of what boundaries will help me stay fit, both mentally and physically. Being aware of what triggers me, right? What are the things that trigger me? I know, for example, myself, I feel triggered when I'm I'm constantly working and the pace of working is at a very high level of like stress. If that goes on for too long for me, I notice that my memory is getting worse. I notice that I'm craving for junk food more. I notice that I get more cranky. So when I start to notice that, I need to take a step back and say, okay, what can I do for myself in this moment? It doesn't mean I'll drop the ball for work, but it means that I need to integrate the time for myself. So I think that, so educating yourself, being aware of what things are relevant to you, and then making sure you take those micro steps. They don't have to be big things, right? I think that the challenge that people with what some people are trying to do is they take these long breaks and then they go back to the grind and then they go for long periods again of really high stress. Um, it- that's like when you feel you need a break, it's probably a little too late. And so I think taking micro steps is probably more effective and easier to find, right? 5 minutes to do a bit of a meditation every day is not a lot of time. 10 minutes to do a quick walk around the block is not a lot of time. I don't know if that helps. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I like what you said about awareness, having that awareness,
Mm.
because what people are looking for are things to do. Like what you said, I need a vacation, so I'll go there. I go to that vacation. I'll go to the salon, things like that. But sometimes taking a step back, what you said about meditation, taking a walk, those small things that you do make an impact. And like when you're already at the point of burnout, I don't think a vacation can actually help because it will just get you out of that space, but then you need to go
Yeah,
back to that space, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
So Jackie, with a lot of these things in our backdrop, right? I'm just really curious your take on this. Should you still focus on career advancement, promotion, or lateral movement, growth in general? Or should you just be happy that you have a job in this time of chaos?
Yeah. Um, I, I think despite the chaos and despite the uncertainty, I like to believe, and I have seen it in organizations today, that there are still many opportunities for growth.
Mm,
There are. Um, and I guess the perspective that one has on growth is also as important here, right? So if I'm viewing growth as where am I learning the most? Where do I have the opportunity to apply myself and be of value and contribution? Where am I, interacting with people that, that make me be at my best? I think that could be part of that perspective of growth, right? It's not just about the promotion. It's not just about more money that I can make or that title that they can give me, right? I think if that's the perspective, then there's so many different ways of growing in one's work. Um, should you just be satisfied with where you are? If that's what works for you, then why not? Absolutely, right? A lot of people find joy in having a sense of balance where I have a good job that helps me to provide for my family, and I have good time for my family. I'm able to take vacations. I'm able to do, personal development things and hobbies. I'm not up for a promotion. Great. If that's what works for you, if that's what balance looks like for you, right? But if it is important for you to progress, to add more value, then by all means, right? You do you.
Right. So it really needs a lot of self-reflection, a lot of awareness, because when we talk about leveling up, people always think of the career ladder, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
leveling up can mean so many things. It can be having more, leveling up can mean more time with your family, more time pursuing
Right.
your passion projects, things like that.
Mm,
But if it's a promotion that's leveling up for you, then find ways to get that, right? But
yeah.
so, Jackie, I want to pick your HR brain on this, like, or even as a coach, right? So if you do want a promotion, what are the must skills or behaviors that you need to have to stand out within your company?
Okay. So I'm gonna speak from, I guess, personal perspective, right? And it might vary depending on the company and the context and the leader that you're working with, right? But maybe these are things that I would look for if I was working with someone and I thought they were ready for more, right? Um, I look for a talent that is able to think beyond the scope of work that is given to them. So if I'm given a task, I'm not just doing the task, I'm thinking about how does this task relate to the bigger picture? How does this task add value to the entire department? How does this task, um, how can this task be improved? Right? So you're thinking beyond what is given to you. You're not just doing the stuff. That's one thing I would look for. Um, the second, I guess, would be I would look for someone who gets why we're doing what we do in this company. In my company, for example, because we're in coaching, it's a very personal development focused company, and so walking the talk around what we do here is also important to me. You get why we're doing it, and you also do that yourself, right? It's practicing the thing that you actually help your clients with, right? Um, so those are I guess a couple of things that I would look for. Um, Initiative is always a good thing, and all of those things. I guess that other people might say. At the end of the day, it's alignment and values to me that is the most important. That if I don't see, even if you are the best performer, if I don't see alignment and values, that is not a good fit for me.
What do you mean by values? Is it your
Mm.
personal values as a leader, or is it the values of the organization?
I think it's both. I think it's both because first you have to be very aware of what is it your values, what are your values that you hold dear, right?
Mhm.
And how do they align with the organization's values as well? So
Right.
that's got to come together, right? And if the company is moving towards a certain direction which doesn't feel right for you, then maybe that's not a good fit, right? So you have to be able to find your place in the way that the company runs itself. If I'm making decisions that go against my own personal values simply to satisfy, then that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and if you do that, you'd also lead yourself to burnout, right? Like maybe at the
Right?
start you'll be happy because you got I mean you achieved your goal, but if it doesn't align with your personal values, the direction of the job does not align with your personal values, then it will eventually lead to a lot of resentment. I mean, it could lead to a lot of resentment and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah. And you'll find yourself spending more energy, right?
Mm,
You'll because you're constantly battling with this internal conflict, right? It takes so much effort and energy to do something that goes against something that you believe in, right?
right.
So if you're finding that, oh, I'm you're in that kind of situation often, then you might want to think about whether you're in the right place.
So it really goes back to having that awareness, do a lot of self-reflection on what is it
Mm,
that, what are your values to begin with? What are your
yep,
strengths? What are,
yep.
yeah, exactly. But essentially from what I heard, Jackie, it's really beyond being great at what you do. It's going beyond or showcasing that you're ready for a bigger role, having the initiative to think of improvements or see beyond your role, see the picture. Okay, so let's say you're ready, like you have what it takes already to you showcase yourself, your values are aligned. What should you do to showcase that, hey, I'm ready for a bigger role? How, without looking, because again, I wanted to put this in the Asian context, right? Where there's a lot of, what do you call this? There's a lot of context. How can you do this without looking pushy or impatient?
So is the question about how do I position myself
Right.
that I'm ready?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, I remember someone saying to me once before, you dress for the job you want,
Mm,
not the job you have. And that is, I guess, literally and figuratively, right? So if I'm wanting, say, to become a manager, right? I need to understand, how does a manager think, behave, and make decisions? Um, and how do I begin to imbibe that in the work that I'm doing, right? So I'm I'm already starting to display behaviors and actions that are aligned with a manager's behaviors and actions, right? So I think that's a very uh it's not as subtle, because you are showing behavior when you're working with others, right? In a meeting, you're speaking up, you're kind of sharing your views in that lens. Then by the time you get to a promotion, what you want people to say is, oh, it's just about time. I mean, that was a long time coming, right? Because yeah, this person does deserve that, because they think like a manager, they act like a manager, right? So I think that's probably something that in our culture you could do, because here it's not it it's not common that, unlike in other cultures where you can ask for a promotion, ask for a raise. In many organizations here, there's a process and a cycle that follows, right? Every year there's a review of talent and who might get promoted, who might get an increase, etc. It's not like a negotiation for every employee, right? And so what you want to do is get yourself to a level of preparedness and readiness when those cycles come around. So that's I guess the first thing, right? This whole approach to how you behave. The second is, I would have very open and honest conversations with your leader, right? And to talk about career development, to take that into your own hands and say, here's what I aspire for. What can I do to help get to that point, and work on a development plan and show that you can address development needs, that you're ready to do the work that allows you for that growth and preparedness.
Wow. I've heard of dress for the role that you want, not the role that you have before. But this is the first time I've actually heard that there's a figurative way of dressing up, and that's being the person that you want to become, becoming the person that you want. So, Jackie, I just wanted to clarify on your second point on
Mm,
having that honest conversation, because you said, like, in Western culture, it's very normal to just approach and say, "Hey, I want a promotion. I think I'm ready." So how does an honest conversation with your manager look like?
well, it would be just saying, here's what I would like to see myself get into, right? I think it is challenging because I think there's some perception around, if I say I want to become a manager, it might seem like I'm thinking too much of myself, thinking too highly of myself, uh, in, and maybe it there's a perception that that's not a good thing and it might be frowned upon. Um, but there are ways of telling your manager that you are aspiring, right? And aspiring is normal and natural for anybody, right? It's not like you're insisting and saying, "Oh, I think I should be manager. I think I should be in the next level already." Right? Here's what I aspire for. Have a conversation and ask, "What do you think I should do so that I'm ready for that? What development areas should I work on so that I'm ready for that? And how can I develop? And what support can you give me so that I'm working on the right things?" I think that's the kind of conversation you want to have. It's not just about saying and demanding that I'm given a particular role. It's really the openness to receive feedback, the openness to work on areas that you need to improve on, and to show that you are working towards that.
I see. So it's getting your manager or your leader involved in the process and not just saying, "Hey, I did this, I'm ready. These are my KPIs."
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the challenges also that I've seen is this notion that, well, I'm doing the work already. If they feel I deserve it, they will give it to me. So it's
Mm,
very passive, which is the other extreme of the
right.
being over aggressive and demanding for it, right? So there is that sweet spot, and that's what I was describing earlier. The sweet spot in the middle of not
Mm,
being too passive and not being too aggressive as well.
yeah. And knowing the different ways to approach your manager, like understanding their personality as well, when's the perfect time, what type of conversation is your manager comfortable with? Like, is she a data person or is she a person who's more into connection, like what you said, aligning back to the values of the manager as well? But Jackie, let's say, okay, so you've done the work, you've had an honest conversation with your manager, and it seems like you're already ready for a promotion.
Mhm.
But if this is a reality, some people just get passed on for a promotion, right? Whether the other person that got promoted deserves it or not, you would feel a type of way if you feel that you deserve that promotion, but someone else gets promoted. So, what? How should you look at this? Like, what should your game plan be to get back on track so that next time you're still in the running for future chances?
Yeah, I can relate to that personally because that did happen to me. Um, there was a yeah, so I had a colleague and we were kind of both at the same level. And when it came to um, uh, promotion season, that other person got promoted and I didn't, and I felt awful. I felt terrible. I thought, what else do I need to do? I've been doing so much. I feel like there's nothing left that I can do more of, and why didn't I get that right? I felt like I deserved it. Um, so I can absolutely understand how that feels. At the same time, I not well, having had years after that to reflect and ponder now, looking back at it, right? I can look at it now and say, okay, I was meant for a different path. Because shortly after that incident of not being selected, um, I was offered an opportunity to work on a project, which then gave me exposure, which then kind of broadened my network in the company. So there were more things that were happening from a growth perspective, maybe not necessarily moving up in terms of level, but I got a lot of chances to really learn and grow in the roles. And that actually gave me the boost, which eventually led to head of HR. So i- looking back now, I can say, well, it actually worked out. It wasn't so bad. In that moment, though, it sucked for sure, right? And I guess that's one way of dealing with it is to, you have to, buckle up, keep doing what you do, see it as an opportunity perhaps to discover other areas of learning, um, see it as a redirection rather than a rejection.
But at that moment, I think it's also okay to acknowledge that it sucked, right?
For sure, it does, right?
Yeah.
And there's no there's no masking it. If it feels bad, it feels bad. And acknowledge
Right.
that, because when you feel bad about it, it means that something was important to you.
Mm,
I acknowledge that I feel bad because I value my work. I value my contribution. I value recognition, and that's why it sucks, right?
right.
Uh, and that's okay.
Right. But after that, feeling bad is reframing it, like what you said, and having that growth mindset. Because I think what you really have, Jackie, is that growth mindset that, hey, this might not be a higher level, but I'm growing from, I'm learning from these roles that or tasks that are given to me, and eventually it all worked out. So
Yeah.
yeah. So what is one thing that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Boy, where to begin? Well, if it comes to, I guess, managing your career, right? Um, I think what I'd love for people to understand is, one, you can own your own development,
Mm,
and you can find ways of growing if you own your development and if you're clear about what you want for yourself, right? So own it. And the second is, don't be afraid to ask for help. If
mm,
something is unclear, if something needs work, um, there are peers, colleagues, mentors who you could get in touch with, coaches who you could get in touch with to help support you in that journey, right? So you can own it and you can ask for help.
own it and ask for help. All right. Speaking of asking for help, Jackie, if anyone wants to get in touch with you as a coach for their organization or as an individual, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can look at our website. We're on harayacoaching.com. That's where they'll find me and other coaches who are on our platform.
Right. And to our listeners and our viewers, I'll drop the link in the description down below. Anyway, thank you, Jackie, for such a wonderful and insightful conversation.
Thanks so much, Ken. I enjoyed it. Thanks so much.